Hello, friends. It's John Klein III of episode 172 of Shadow and Flame of Magic, the podcast, and we are going to review Ultimate X-Men Volume 143, and then the rest of the comics that came out last week. So let's get into it. And we're itching our way through our issue 43, and this came out in May 2004. Story by Brian Michael Bendis, pencils by David Finch, inks Art Thurber, colors Frank DeMarta. Letters, Chris Elipoulos. And you can follow along on my TikTok and YouTube channels at Jacko SIII. And let's keep getting into this. Ultimate X-Men. Professor Charles Xavier brought them together to bridge the gap between humanity and those born with strange and amazing powers. Cyclops, Marvel, Storm, Beast, Iceman, Colossus, and Wolverine. They are the X-Men, soldiers of Xavier's war to bring peace between man and mutant. Previously, in Ultimate X-Men. The X-Men have gone public in an attempt to carry their pro-mutant human relations messages forward. The X-Men now fall under the jurisdiction of U.S. security leader Nick Fury, with both the government and Xavier trying to figure out exactly how this new relationship will work. Recently, Fury sent Wolverine without Professor Xavier's knowledge to take care of a boy whose mutant power killed his whole town. The government administration feared that Professor X has been controlling the president's mind. With this in mind, the chief of staff called in a mutant expert to see the president. Her name is Emma Frost. Unknown to the rest of the team, Hank McCoy, aka Beast, has left Xavier's mansion without a word after he thought the new member Angel had stolen his girlfriend Storm's affections. And on the very top, we have a row of the characters, and unfortunately, Kitty Pryde Shadowcat's the only one listed who is not mentioned in the above text, so that's irritating. Also, she's barely in this issue. Spoilers. And so we see Xavier trying to calm Storm down in the worst way possible. As we see barely Kitty Pryde, it's Logan, Scott wearing a property of Xavier's school shirt, Jean, Rogue, Kurt, Colossus, and Iceman. And Xavier says, Storm, you need to calm down. And Storm says, I am calm. Then we see Rumble. But it's like, come on. Which I did tweet that panel to the current writer of Storm, just to be like, worst way to, or how not to respond to Storm. And then he wrote back up like, ha ha ha. And I was like, oh, he got the joke. That's great. And so everyone's upset about how Hank's gone, just out of nowhere. Logan doesn't sniff any trouble on the grounds. And Xavier doesn't like using his telepathy to figure out why he's gone. But Scott recommends that he tries to do it, and Xavier responds with, Scott, I do not read minds that I do not have permission to read, especially my students. It's immoral. I do not do that. So we all know he definitely does that. And then, okay, we get another sliver of a panel with Kitty in it. And then we get Scott saying, can you use Cerebro to find him? And then Kitty's in the panel, so that's nice. And Xavier says it's disappointing, but he can do that. Then we cut to the White House Situation Room where Emma Frost reveals that she's a mutant, which gets security to throw her face down hard into the table, which seems very unnecessary because wasn't she vetted? And the president gets them calmed down. In the Ultimate Universe, they try to conceal the president to keep the comics evergreen. And so he calms them down, or at least as much as they can. There's a Days of Future Past diorama statue, which seems weird to say diorama and statue, but maybe they're trying to tell you it's not just plastic. Based on Uncanny X-Men 141 with Logan, Days of Future Past Logan and Kate Pride. And in my video, I said I own it, but I actually own the Marvel Legends set of these two. And so I don't own this, so that's unfortunate. Add that to the list of, I think, two Kate Pride related statues I don't own. And so they want to know what Emma's powers are. She can turn to diamond, and everyone's like, all right, so what do you want to do? And so she has her own team of new mutants, which is this part 4 of 6, I think, because that was the general rule. Oh yeah, Cyclops is on the cover. And then we see Beast is being shown to his room, his hotel room. The bellboy does not, bellhop? Probably. Won't take Beast's cash for a tip, which is like, how does Beast even have cash? Does Xavier give him cash? How much being a child soldier pay at Xavier's? What does Xavier do for money? These are questions the Ultimate Universe also refused to answer. Xavier pops in using Cerebro. Beast doesn't want him reading his mind, and Xavier repeats that he doesn't read people's minds. He's like, all right. Xavier reminds him that he said Angel was having feelings for Storm, but never that Storm was having feelings for Angel. But Beast has made a decision. He is gone. We see Emma's team back in the White House Situation Room. It's Beast, Dazzler, Polaris, Alex Summers, Bishop, and Wolfsbane. I think that's Blink and Callisto. And not sure who the other two could be. But those ones are named. Well, Blink isn't named, nor is Callisto, but they do reference like one of them looks like crawled out of a sewer. So that must be the Callisto one. And Emma is talking. Oh yeah, and so in the previous issue, uh Dazzler told Scott Summers that another agency was interested in her, but she's already forgotten their name. But whoever gets her a record deal, she will sign with them. And so they're talking about the MTV and how MTV got Clinton in the White House. And so Dazzler's hip with the MTV crowd, which is crazy. In 2004, we're still referencing MTV, but sure. And since this is the Ultimate Universe, Alex is the older brother of Scott because that's a fun, easy flip to do. But because Magneto has taken the Ultimate President, who's clearly Bush 41, and no, 43. 39? No, 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 43. And, but Magneto hurt the president, and so now he's like, no magnet powers, they're out. And they're like, well, Alex's one thing he wants to do is become more famous than his brother, but they're a set. But they're like, well, that's his goal. He would dump her, so we're done. Interesting that the speech bubbles, classic Bendis comic, it's a double page splash. But the comic works from the top left view all the way around the bottom border to the top. That's usually not how they work, but this one's clever that way. Then he says no to the Wolf Girl, which makes me think it's Wolfsbane. He says no to Bishop because of his jail time and his criminal record. No to the Magnet Girl. No to the one who crawled out from under something. But he does want the cute little Asian number, which is gross, but that's karma. Karma was very useful. So the president and Emma leave the room, and then the generals are saying how they will not endorse a mutant government liaison, which is fun that this is called New Mutants instead of calling it X Factor, but sure. And so they're gonna make an agreement that they are gonna put an end to this. And we cut back to Xavier's as Storm, Scott, and Jean are talking to Xavier about because I guess he just returned from. Oh no, no, he used Libro, so he never left the mansion. But just like Beast is just clearly gone. And they sense a helicopter coming, but it has such side blockers that they can't see who's on the or feel who's on the helicopter. But since you have anti-telepathic blockers, they can clearly tell there's a hole where there should be an item, and their eyes do the rest. And issue ends with Nick Fury landing and telling Charles that we need to talk. And we will most likely do issue 44 next year. And, but yeah, pretty solid issue. Barely any Kitty Pryde in it. She doesn't even say a word, so that's highly disappointing. And so, what comics came out last week? Spoilers for comics of last week. I'm gonna post these most likely all three panels and I guess the cover on the podcast's socials at SNFWM and spelt out. So we have my comic of the week last week was Uncanny X-Men 13, where we learn about Miss Henry, who um is from the segregation era of America, which lasted way too long. And she gets harassed by some white people, which is unfortunate. And they dump all of her materials, but she's on a strict mission. And of course, whatever they were looking for was on her person. They didn't touch her. So we're fine. She's relatively safe. And then in the present day, Deathstream gets the outliers. He hears a song and feels compelled to check it out. We get a little more flirtmance with Jitter and Becca. And Ember refuses to go down, which makes Ransom comment about how the smartest member of their team is the horse, which I'm like, yeah, man. Like Ember is getting the respect he wants, which Gail Simone was sweet enough to retweet that, which I was like, oh, Gail Simone. Which I don't know, I'm such a nerd. I keep making sure she hasn't unfollowed me on Blue Sky, but hasn't followed me on Twitter, so I'm just like, all right. But I don't know. It makes me happy to see that she is following me on Blue Sky. And she's retweeted my Ember positive mention before, so that was oh, and Gambit's in his subplot where he is the dragon from the first issue picks him up and takes him to the Savage Land. Because apparently the other eye of Amargado is going to eventually make him crave human flesh, which seems intense. Um, but when they break up Ransom to go on Death Dream's mission, he's he's almost a nudie booty, and so Gail Simone was posting how Gambit, is just clearly nude under half a sheet. And I was like, oh, he's full nudie booty. And so she tweeted that as retweeted that too. So I was like, oh, Gail Simone. Oh, just I appreciate her. And then Jonathan Loves the X-Men also follows me on Blue Sky. So I was like, hey, the two accounts I really wanted are following me. So I was like, thanks, team. Speaking of him, Lord Kinney Wolverine 5 came out. It's the concluding chapter of the two-parter of Bucky Barnes and her teaming up. Um, they're fighting Nazi or maybe neo-Nazi who's, trying to mutate people by poisoning the water. Of course, those two hate the idea of people being turned into weapons against their will, which is like that's a fun theme to, you know, do with them. And since it's Laura's book, Bucky lets her do the kill, which is like that seems proper. And they end talking about how they should team up again, which is clearly setting up the Thunderbolts, which I still say is going to end with the title, like how Falcon and Winter Soldier ended with Captain America Winter Soldier. We are going to get of Thunderbolts turning into Dark Avengers. Storm 7 has Storm seeing that Iron Man has been taking dates to her sanctuary, which is super gross, using the cute hippos to um I guess have sex with these dates. But since Tony was already being gross, he reveals that Wakanda has or Wakanda. he reveals that T'Challa has revealed that Storm sometimes floats in her sleep, and it's like, come on, man. That's gross. Don't be talking about Storm's sleeping habits with the boys of the Avengers. Like, gross. Which once again is why Black Panther fans typically are not big Storm fans because the marriage really ruined his character. Because then writers can now take cheap shots like this and be like, yeah, T'Challa does gross things sometimes, and it's like, yeah, which I sort of like that. This is a relationship they can fall back on. Though it seems very loaded because they can do Storm sleeping with Logan, but and get some public backlash, but Storm and T'Challa, a whole different bag of, which recognizing those are two different offices as well. And then Phoenix 10, Jean wins the day. Nova's barely in it, and Rocket's not in it at all. But the issue ends with Sarah Gray being already resurrected, so we don't know how that is, but super tempted to see what happens next. But I'm excited to see. And yeah, so four comics last week, and then this week we get five issues. Exceptional X-Men 8, which is going to be our headlining comic. Ultimate Wolverine 4, see if we have any fallout from the Ultimate Kitty Pryde, or maybe Catherine Pryde, because she does not seem like a gal who lends herself to being called Kitty, but we'll find out. If there's any references to her, but I already got pre-ordered. I don't think I got five pre-ordered, so I'm like, all right. We have Cable Love and Chrome 4, where he's going to try to, bring Avery back, who I really like. Um, Wolverine 8, which feels like forever since Wolverine 7, but it's that Romulus arc, so I'm not the biggest fan of it. But good character moments. And then finally, X Factor 9, as it slowly gets its way to issue 10, its final issue. But issue 8 was great. So hopefully Forget Me Not keeps being the title, and we'll see what happens. And so that's probably the order I'm going to go on Tuesday when I post my comics of the week. And so that, dear um listener, is episode 172 of Shadow and Flame of Magic, the world's premier Kitty Pryde Lockheed and Magic podcast. I was having the thought earlier today about did Lockheed teaming up with Kate Pryde and Magic kill the Krakoa era? And I'd like to think that was just the ill time of it all. But since Krakoa has fallen, the first age, they have not come back together. So, you know, you make your own conclusions. But I'd like to think that that wasn't the ending of that didn't cause the ending of Krakoa. Personally, I'm still running for Helena School District Board Trustee, and this week I'm excited that I'm going to meet with the Education Union, and then I'm meeting with the Democratic Party, and then I think the next week I'm meeting with the female voters of Helena area. And so, yeah, I feel like the campaign's really coming along, and uh, I don't know, I'm getting excited about the possibility of winning on May 6th. There's three seats open, so six people running, one in six chance of possibly getting in there. So yeah, I'm excited. Well, all right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for listening. Follow me on socials at Jacko SII, the podcast at SNFWM, and I'll talk at you next time. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Bye.